Sometimes a simple story told at just the right moment can completely change the way you see everything. Today, we're going to talk about a really powerful parable about life, about loss, and about what we choose to make room for. It's a story that was shared between lifelong friends right in the shadow of grief. And believe it or not, it all starts with a mayonnaise jar. So let's dive in and see what it's all about. Okay, so this right here, this is the heart of the whole story. The date is September 10th, 2011. A man named Louis Fournier is standing up in front of his oldest friends, and he has something he absolutely needs them to hear. And this wasn't just some casual speech. It was a real plea for connection, and it was delivered at a time when they needed that connection more than ever. But to really get why his words hit so hard, you've got to understand the bond he had with these guys. They called themselves the Timmins Boys and Associates. And this was a group built on a foundation of friendship that went back decades, a friendship they worked really hard to keep alive. And what's just amazing is the sheer dedication here. I mean, think about it. An annual tradition that had been going on for almost a decade at this point. You had friends traveling from all over Ontario, one guy even coming all the way from Nova Scotia just to reconnect. They kicked this trip off back in 2002, and by 2004, this place, Billy Bear Lodge, it had become their spot. Yeah, this was way more than just a get-together. It was a serious commitment. But as strong as this tradition was, it had just been hit by tragedy. The usual laughter of their annual gathering was now kind of mixed with sadness. And this is the crucial context, right? Because that's what really turns Louise's story from just a neat little lesson into this incredibly profound tribute. Okay, let's just walk through this timeline for a second so you can feel the emotional weight here. The tradition starts in 2002. Then, in April of 2011, their friend Mo Cloutier passes away. He was only 40 years old. Less than 5 months later, Louis tells this story. And then what's so heartbreaking is that just a few years after that, Louis himself would pass away, joining his friend. This story, it's like a snapshot in time, captured right between two devastating losses. So here's the thing you really need to get. When Louis stood up to speak, the pain of losing Mo was still incredibly fresh for every single person in that room. What he was saying wasn't just some abstract philosophical idea. No, it was an urgent message to his grieving friends about holding on tight to what and who really, truly matters. So with all that weighing on them, Louis starts telling this story he'd heard. It's about a philosophy professor who wanted to teach his students a lesson that they would never, ever forget. And it all begins with something really simple, an empty mayonnaise jar. Picture this. The professor stands in front of his class, doesn't say a single word. He takes this big, empty jar and just starts filling it up with golf balls, one by one, until you literally can't fit another one in. Then he just turns to the students and asks a simple question. Is the jar full? And seeing it jam-packed, they all look at each other and nod. Yep, it's full. But then, right, he grabs a box of pebbles and starts pouring them in. He gives the jar a little shake, and the pebbles trickle down, filling in all the little gaps between the golf balls. So he asks again, how about now? Is the jar full? The students are a little less sure this time, but yeah, they agree, it looks pretty full. And then for the final step, he grabs a box of sand and pours it into the same jar. And of course, the tiny grains of sand fill up every last little bit of space that's left. All right, one last time, he asks. And now? And at this point, they're positive there is no way anything else can fit. It's a unanimous yes. The demonstration, it seems, is over. And this is the moment. This is where the professor, and of course Louis telling the story to his friends, reveals what this is all really about. It turns out the jar isn't just a jar. It's a metaphor for your life. The professor looks at them and says, now, I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. Just a simple statement, but it completely reframes everything they just saw. All of a sudden, those golf balls and pebbles and the sand, they mean something so much more. So the golf balls? Those are the really important things in your life. Your family, your kids, your health, your friends, the passions that really light you up. The pebbles? Well, those are the other things that matter. Your job, your house, your car. And the sand? Well, that's just everything else. It's all the small stuff. And this is the key takeaway. The big warning. The professor explains if you put this sand into the jar first, there is no room for the pebbles or the golf balls. It's the same exact thing with life. If you spend all your time and energy on the small, insignificant stuff, you'll never have room for the things that are actually important.
So the message is pretty simple, right? Pay attention to the things that are critical to your happiness. You have to take care of the golf balls first. Spend time with your kids, go see your parents, visit your grandparents, take your spouse out to dinner. You have to set your priorities because everything else, it's just sand.
But just when everyone thinks the lesson is over, the professor gets this little smile on his face. He had one final point to make, a perfect little twist that brings the whole thing back to what really matters: human connection. He just reaches under the table and pulls out 2 beers. He pops them open and pours the entire contents right into the jar. And even though it seemed completely full, the jar just soaks it all up. And of course, the students kind of laugh, wondering what's going on. So naturally, one of the students raises her hand. She's got to ask, okay, what does the beer represent? And the professor just smiles and says, I'm glad you asked. The beer just shows you that no matter how full your life may seem, there's always room for a couple of beers with a friend. And just like that, he brought the entire lesson full circle, right back to the very reason Louis was telling this story in the first place, to remind his friends right in their moment of loss of the incredible, irreplaceable value of their time together. You know, this story, shared by Louis Fournier in memory of his friend Mo, is just such a timeless and powerful reminder for every single one of us. It leaves us with a really simple but profound question. So take a moment and ask yourself, what are the golf balls in your life? And are you making sure to take care of them first?